Much can be said about the difficulty of this younger generation in coping up with the stress because of the process of adaptation to the change and the refluxes and stress given by the change of method in education, in the standard of life, the social changes, and several other collaborative factors which are influencing their brain and producing lot of hardships in facing and coping up the difficulties. Much can be said about the power of mentorship and psychology, the role of psychology. So here I feel I want to dwell a few moments about the mentorship or equipping the younger generation with the art of coping up with the change and facing the stress in this particular field, specifically in the field of education after the introduction of new education policy and the recent most crisis faced by the younger generation in the process of attaining an objective or even in the process of education. This has to be dealt by the seriously thinking people of the society and finding a solution. Here I feel that mentoring with a psychological lens, equipping these young minds the strong psychological base, giving a courage to them, dwelling in their minds, inducting in their minds proper concepts and proper philosophical base in order to face the society and basically to understand the society, the process of social change which is causing change in the educational patterns and life patterns of the society. Through good organization, proactive use of psychology, finding right people who can lead success stories for years to come. The idea behind mentorship with a psychological lens must be a program passing on wisdom, tips, and providing a support system to someone who wants to further themselves in their education, career, and even personal life. Here I repeat this: education, career, and even personal life. This good thing is not confined to one area. It can be extended to multifarious activities and from the multifarious angles of life. Mentoring can appear in everyday life as well as through organized programs at work. The focus is usually on building up existing strengths rather than focus fully on negative aspects and trying to teach them a new skill. So, embodied, the inherent available strength in the individual, that is a young man, has to be equipped and well built. We are all capable of learning and taking a new information that we need to do particular task. But a mentor would be someone who must help to get the task complete by showing a new ways of thinking or learning, not holding your hand through the task itself. Here, the role of unlocking the mind. That type of unlocking the mind can be done only trained psychologists and people who are trained in mentoring the youth, specifically in these three angles of education, life, and facing the oddities in life. It is great to have a structure in place and ideas of what to expect when entering a fresh mentorship with psychological lens regarding to schedule meetings, content, and topics, but both parties have an important role to play that involves time and dedication to the program to be able to see it through. This requires a pilot organization. This requires a proper structured organization with the people of eminence and capabilities. This is why looking into psychology of mentorship can be beneficial before you start so that you have the correct mindset and expectations. This applies to both the mentor and mentee. There are fantastic tips to think about before you set off on your journey into a mentoring program. Both the mentor and mentee They must be mutually helpful. The mentor also must be in a position to accommodate the learning skills of the mentee, and he must be ready. He must be in a position to receive from the mentee also, so that he can understand the mind level and unlock the mind of the student to flourish that brain, to make that brain widen the horizon to receive a change, adapt to the change with all strength and courage. This is where the psychology of mentoring, it's not a scary subject, but needs to be remembered word for word when becoming a mentor. It is just good to know how the thought process works from a mentee aspect to you are able to focus on their strengths and help improve aspects of their working lives. Here, basically, the psychological study of a student, where he stands, what is his ability, what is his bandwidth, what is his length and breadth of the knowledge, then only he can be taught. By identifying talents and skills, the membership becomes instantly more productive. Positive psychology works on what is going well and which can be broadened, not focusing on problems, areas like ill health as a traditional psychology does, but concentrating on the modern problems of education, youth, generation, their vagaries, their capacity to understand the society. Here, the psychological lens as a mentor, if you are able to help shift a person's mindset from what is not working to what is working, and how they can build from that point, you are off to a flying start. Change is not something that everybody adapts well to, especially initially. There has been huge amounts of work done on resistance to change. Here, resistance to change is a major fact to be dealt from all angles, with patience, with resilience by the mentor. A change management, a typical example is when a person knows that they want to change something, or maybe it is not so much but want they need to change something to progress in their careers. But they do not know how, as it means changing lifelong habits. Learning and adapting to change is not easy, but good mentor will have not difficulty with inducting the psychological lens into the brain of the young student or youth, so that they will try to understand the perspective of the organization, perspective of their goal, perspective of their education in a different manner compared to others, so that the inherent strength available in him which can push him in coping up with the change and ably face the situation and get success. Learning and adapting to change is not easy, but a good psychological lens will give a face to ride over the difficulties themselves, and drawing upon sharing experiences is the foundation of a successful psychological program to youth. If you do what you have always done, you will get what you have always got. To quote, this quote has been around for many years and many have claimed they coined the phrase. However, that reply matters in the point it is trying to make it. The very easy in business to see things working and keep doing them the same way, but the result may not be the same because of the changed circumstances. This applies to the youth, education, life, process, and everything. That is where the necessity of inducting a psychological lens in the brains of these youth, so that a different perspective, different understanding, which is relevant to the change, will come into place. From the perspective of the student community, the reason for change may be simply because they are stuck in a rut. Even if they are enjoying their day to day work, complacency might mean that they are no longer pushing forward. The desire to change or advance can be enabled through adapting psychological methods when it is backed by the motivation and channels of support and experience a mentoring program which is organized to the young people. What can you change about yourself? These are the questions normally will help. What can you change about the situation? Situation cannot be changed, but you have to adapt yourself to the situation. This is the process which has to be inducted into the minds of the young people. For the most part, changing the situation is harder than making a smaller change within ourselves. An event within mentee's career may be causing a lot of stress in their life and can initiate reactions that are less positive. This can be a stumbling block for the next move in their career. These blocks have to be changed. How to develop resilience? Encouraging resilience in the minds of the young people will help them in their professional life and personal life. Being able to deal with the difficult situations instead of sinking behind them, looking at them as opportunities is an important life skill that can help anybody, specifically youth and educated, while they are in the process of education. This requires a trained psychology people in an organized structure in every school and specifically colleges because of their youth that will help them to mold themselves a coping up strength for any facing any problem. Think of an actor starting to look for roles in the industry. They may have to go several hurdles and auditions. Like that, so many things they have to cross in order to achieve. At the first knockback, nobody will get an on, nobody will get a chance. Same way, it is only the hard work, the capacity to cope up with the conditions, to go advance, to go forward in spite of all the difficulties, that psychological lens and that psychological strength which can be given to an organized structure if the government takes into consideration a program, an organization to develop it. Having the ability to deal with the difficult situations and pressures in any avocation, in any patterns, in any field of life will give help the youth to be. The patterns of career resilience also has to be taught in the colleges and the universities. Building career resilience is not one off event. It is instead something that is ongoing and is visible. While not technically measurable, progress can be seen, and having resilience can change a lot in personal life. Clarifying. It can be really easy slip into a pattern at work, looking after the areas of the work you are tasked with and not paying much attention to the outside world, being able to find clarity in your purpose. That clarity has to be provided by the mentors with psychology background will help the youth and specifically student community very well. Connecting. Having people on your side is a must to be able to find success. Climbing the rungs of the career ladder is never just based on a person's skill alone. Skill plays a major part, but not skill alone. Creating a network of people that you trust and that can support you in your moves can be difference between staying. That is where networking as an art shall be taught to the student community so that he will gather people in and around him of his bandwidth and of his capability, and as a group they can succeed even in education or even preparing for a competitive examination. Here, the psychological lens given by the mentors will always talk about networking as one of the most important parts of their career. A career can be built by a group. So, creating a successful people, a successful team can be the easiest part of reading or achieving a goal, being able to innovate and come up with new ideas because a group will be sitting and discussing, help make the student community forward. It what makes it so successful, but in a lot of educational institutions this is lacking. This creating network has to be taught at the level of student itself. Above all, the most important thing is coping up. Coping up with the healthy coping patterns in a personal life can have huge impact on work life or study life and creating thus at a balanced sign of resilience. A mentor has to successfully talk about how they dealt with difficult situations, lengthy workloads, and feeling like they could have done with a few more hours in the day on many occasions. Learning how to cope up with these situations has to be an important factor in career success and it can be a great jumping off point as it is relatable subject. Everyone at time has felt their work life has taken over and the personal life is gone. That sort of feeling shall never come into the minds of youth because when they are pursuit, when they are in a pursuit of achieving a higher goal, they have to sacrifice certain things. That sacrificing that certain times comforts, that psychological feeling has to be inducted into the brains. Only hard work can take them. Then there should not be wavering in the minds of the youth in order to achieve a subject. Managing emotional responses. Every human will get the emotional responses the same way a student or a youth can get it. It cannot be taught directly, but it can be planted in the minds of a youth. The art of managing his own ways, coping, build up a fantastic work and personal life relationship. Being able to control these emotional responses and remain optimistic throughout various career challenges is a challenge in itself. Using in a positive way shows great resilience and growth. In order to achieve a higher level of advancement with the new educational policy, the government must think organizing a structure, organizing a body, organizing a project which can drive this psychological lens, which can induct, which can build the art of coping up with the change, stress, understanding the society, understanding the newness of the educational policy, what are the social changes, what are the educational challenges in coping up with the science. Suppose if totally humanities are neglected, one aspect of human life is set off, that education will become lopsided. If you want to induct only the arts and other things, what about science, education? See, without scientific advancement, no society can move forward. So, somewhere that balance, that harmony has to be created by a government organization with the assistance of experienced and able people who can mentor and build strength creatively, giving an opportunity, allowing the people to think, but inducting them in their brains a psychological lens which can give them strength to cope up with the changes that are going very fast in the society. This is very, very essential for any college student or a university student or even to a school student to cope up with the changes. Thank you very much.